Welcome to episode 64 from the Shed End podcast with myself, T. Theo, how you doing?
Yeah, not bad. A bit of a gloomy day here in London, and we're just saying that it's only Wednesday, so a couple more days to go until the weekend. But how are you doing?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Yeah, just do you know what? I'm missing football. I am bad. I'm missing football, like really bad. I think I said that on the last episode actually. Yeah, I'm just struggling. Obviously, we've got the women's Euros coming up, so I will watch that. But it's yeah, you can't beat Premier League football. I watched the Liverpool Anfield game from last season. I think on Sunday, we were amazing. That second half, when you look back, I know we didn't obviously win the game, but looking back, we were amazing.
I mean, from August till maybe mid-November, we were brilliant, but we
Yeah, yeah,
still kind of thought we could win the league, and then it all went downhill, like it always does. End of
yeah.
November, throughout December, and then obviously the season kind of got derailed with all the sanctions and all that. But we've gone through this way too
If
too
you want to
often. Anyway.
listen back, go back and listen to episode whatever. Just go and listen to all the episodes. You'll catch them on there. But that's a good segue because if you haven't already, please go and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Our subscribers are slowly going up. I think we're on 200 and something now, which is really good. Getting a lot of the traction on there and the algorithms, so it's really good. So please go and subscribe on YouTube, and also don't forget to follow our social accounts, which you'll see at the bottom of this screen as well. So Instagram and Twitter, and also Spotify, Apple podcasts for any of your podcasts that you want to listen to as well, as I just mentioned. But we're going to talk transfers and departures. So let's start with the departures. I think it's only right to do that first. Just very briefly want to break it down and talk about some of them. So I think let's go back to the Bruce Buck and Marina Granovskaya, who were the first kind of big names to come out of the club. I know Bruce Buck's still there in some sort of capacity. But Marina was that a surprise one for you? Because I know she's sort of on hand, as they kind of put it in the statement, till tomorrow, I think. But what's your thoughts on those two departures as such?
I think, like you just said, I think the Marina Granovskaya one was a more big surprise, if I'm completely honest. I felt like she was only a couple weeks or a month ago, she was celebrating with the women's team at Wembley, and she really felt part of Chelsea more so than Bruce Buck. And she was so influential. I think she joined in October 2014, if I'm not mistaken. And you look at all the players that would have come in through the door since then. There's been a lot of dodgy signings, don't get me wrong. But you look at particularly summer 2020 when we brought in Ziyech, Werner, Chilwell, Silva. I'm forgetting a few. Kai Havertz, Edouard Mendy, and you just wonder how influential she was to get decent money, decent price tags for them as well. And you look at Werner and Ziyech, who are just coming off the back ends of brilliant seasons. But no, it is a bit of a surprise. I do think she divided the fan base at times, even though us fans, we can't really know for sure what happens behind the scenes. But no, I think my kind of main feeling about her is I liked her. I liked the business she did for us. I like that she was a strong-minded businesswoman as well, which is what the club needed at times. So I think now we can just wish her the best and hope we can kind of whoever fills in after the summer will be as good as her.
Yeah, because I think there's. I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think people focus on the dodgy deals, if you can call them. The dodgy deals that we did do, and she's obviously massively responsible for them. But I think we need to also look at the other side of some of those names you just pulled off. I mean, yes, some of them potentially haven't worked out in terms of what we expect of them on the pitch, but just for the financial, from a business perspective, what she'd done, you can't really fault that because she'd done what she was asked to do. She brought in top quality players for the right amount of money, sold some, we sold in terms of business, we've done well selling players on as well. So I think is it Michael Edwards that was previously at Liverpool, I think,
Yes,
has been sort of, his name's sort of been linked heavily as well. What's your thought? I mean, Todd Bowley's very sort of keen to obviously try and put Chelsea in a new direction, and I think one of those directions is to use the blueprint that Liverpool have been successful with in the likes of Man City. So what do you think around that in terms of bringing someone in who knows the sort of how it works at Liverpool and trying to replicate it in some aspects?
As much as I don't really like using the term replicate of its club's business, because I think each club is unique in their way that they conduct their business, but I hate Liverpool, don't get me wrong, but they've been...
I think we both can.
Yeah, we're in agreement there, but the business they've done is absolutely superb. It's hard to think of maybe I can, top of my mind, I can only think of maybe Minamino, Keita that haven't really performed to the price tags that they bought them in for. But all the other players that they've signed have been brilliant. And I forgot his name. Is it Michael Edwards?
I think it's Michael Edwards. Yeah, I might have got it wrong, but
I think if he's responsible for bringing those players in, then he's clearly a smart guy. He knows what he's doing, and if we can get someone like that in to replace Marina, then that'd be brilliant. But I'm confident, like I always say, that Tuchel and Bowley will talk between each other this time, and they can get the right kind of resources and technical directors that they need in that team.
And I think that's why I'm sort of weighing onto the side of I'm happy with the fact that Marina's gone, and obviously Bruce Berg, not in the way that it's probably been handled. I don't know. We're not sort of in the room to see how it's been handled, but I just think the direction that I think the club needs to go in, it does need. And I think Todd Bowley always had people in mind he wanted to take these roles on anyway. And I think the fact that he's allowed Marina to leave the club, or to sort of stay on hand for a couple more weeks, he's sort of give Bruce Buck a new role. It tells you that before he even got the club, he would have had a part of his business plan would have, I want these people to be in these roles. If I'm successful in my bid to get Chelsea, I want these people in the role. So based on certain transfer negotiations, which we'll touch on later on, but just in terms of how things seem to be moving at the club, departures and incoming players as well, I think that relationship, just having Todd Bowley there with Thomas Tuchel directly talking to each other, having that conversation, it seems like it could potentially work better for us bringing those players in. Definitely.
I think something that was apparent now, which was less so apparent last summer, was that Lukaku wasn't the player that was at the top of Tuchel's list, and I felt like it was more a player that maybe Marina, Bruce Buck, and possibly Petr Cech brought in over Tuchel. But I really hope, like I said, that now Tuchel and Bowley will be aligned with the vision and the players that they bring in and the players that depart as well. And that communication is on point between the two, because that's the most important thing. You don't want any fallouts with the board, the manager, the players, like we saw with what happened with the Lukaku saga.
And you just touched on Petr Cech, so another player. He's still a player. He's still a player to me, and technically, I think he was up until not long ago. I'm sure he's playing in the development squad, so I'm technically right. But Petr Cech obviously leaving after 3 years in his sort of new role, which from the statement that Chelsea put out in terms of him bringing the academy players together, pushing them through into the men's senior squad, was that another surprise for you? Did you think, obviously with Marina sort of leaving, Bruce Buck having his new role, Petr Cech was almost part of that core, part of that corporate board level. He was part of that role. Did you see him staying on with Todd Bowley after everything that's kind of gone on? And you touched on it there with the Lukaku, reports come out to say that, Marina and Petr Cech wanted to keep Lukaku for another season at the club, and Todd Bowley and Tuchel were technically against that. Would you surprised to see Petr Cech go?
Again, I think it's one that maybe it was apparently Bowley and Tuchel wanted him to stay. That's what they're saying. But I think it was more Cech that stepped down himself, purely based maybe because he wasn't aligned with that vision that maybe Bowley and Tuchel had, which, like you said, maybe is linked to Lukaku staying, leaving. A bit of a surprise, I think, and more kind of it hurts because we love seeing Petr Cech at Chelsea, legend, exactly. The emotional kind of sentiment and attachment we have for him was brilliant. All you have to do is look back at when those protests for the Super League, he was the first one to come out and calm down the fans, almost sympathizing with them, saying, I know what you're going through, don't worry, we're doing our best to find a solution. There's hardly any other kind of players than that kind of senior executive of teams that have come out and done that. You didn't see that at Liverpool, you didn't see that at United, you didn't see that at Madrid, Barcelona, Juventus. So clearly he was someone who wanted to please the fans as well. But I think, like I said, maybe it was just a mismatch of visions between Bowley and Petr Cech.
Yeah, and I mean, we're forgetting, he's a legend because he's a legend as a goalkeeper. You think back to some of those key moments, key games pre-injury, that he sustained against Reading, I think it was. But I mean, he's just a legend as a goalkeeper, and to have him at the club for so long, and like I said, to bring some of those youth players through and help them mature as men, as players as well. Sadly going to be missed, but I think we need to get that recruitment strategy. Still, we need to get it right. We need to get the right people in those positions as well, 100%. But I wanted to talk about Andreas Christensen, who was another player who this week announced that he's leaving the club, which is not news. We kind of knew that anyway, but to see it confirmed, and I thought the statement was good. I don't know if you got to read his statement
I
that he
did.
put out. I thought it was really good, interesting. But what's your thoughts on Christensen? Because he's had ups and downs at Chelsea, in my opinion. But what's your thoughts?
I think there's a lot that we don't know about Christensen. Like you said in his statement, he's a very quiet person. He's not very vocal in post-match interviews. He kind of keeps his private life to himself. He hardly posts on social media. I think before he posted that statement around his departure and thanking the fans, the last time he posted was when he scored his first Chelsea goal, which was back in October 2021. So almost over 6 months later in a way. But it was nice to see that he thanked the fans, and he always loved that Chelsea and the fans. And we talk about youth players. We always talk about Tomori, Mount, Hudson-Odoi, Abraham, those ones, Reece James. But we have to put Christensen in that back bracket. He came through the academy. He made his debut under Mourinho, I think, in 2014. And he played as a right back, so he's really developed as a player. He's matured as a player as well. You can never know what someone goes through in terms of how they feel mentally. So all those problems he was having pre-match, only Tuchel, the players around him, Chelsea and Christensen and maybe his family would know were aware of what was happening. But he has to go down as a player that's won a lot of trophies for us. He's won the Premier League as well, 2015, if you want to count that one. He's won the Champions League. He was brilliant when he stepped in for Thiago Silva in that final in Porto. So I think now as Chelsea fans, we can just wish him the best. And we've had some amazing memories with Christensen.
Yeah. And I said that on our one of our YouTube videos, but I think it's a player who's potentially done what he's hit a ceiling. I think at Chelsea, I couldn't see him staying and progressing at Chelsea. I think the timing of him moving on and potentially us bringing in some new faces in our defence was probably the right thing to do. I think he joined the academy. I think it's 16. So
I think they signed him from the Brøndby Academy, but
exactly.
he came into the Chelsea Academy.
Yeah. So to see him come in at that age and the transition from I can only imagine being 16, coming to a new country. You're playing for a professional football club. You're having to then sort of be, your expectations are so different, and to do that, to grow as a man, whilst you're almost in the spotlight at a big club like Chelsea as well, you can understand why there's been that sort of imbalance of sort of mental health and dealing with things off the pitch and stuff like that as well. So definitely for me, looking back, there's been times I know I've said to you how harsh I've probably been on him in terms of the fact he's pulled out of games at last minute and things like that. But yeah, you only wish him the best. And I think if it is Barcelona that he goes to, I just hope he can get registered, because we know how their sort of financial issues are in Spain at the moment.
I think I saw a picture. They've already printed out all the kit to his name, so it's almost
Okay. So
yeah.
it's
I don't know. I saw a picture of Kessie and Christensen's kits already printed, but like you said, now it's just the financial side of things that needs to be sorted on their side.
Now, I think we've spoken about Marcos Alonso already. I feel like we've spoken about him leaving the club. Obviously, Azpilicueta wants to go as well, and I think we've obviously got that year's extension in place or some sort of deal in place already with Azpilicueta. But can you see Marcos Alonso leaving, pushing for that move? I think he's very keen to try and get this done early, as soon as possible. I'm pretty sure I read, and I might be wrong, so don't quote me, but I think he's finished his sort of holidays, if you want to call it that, early. Get this deal done. He's speaking to Tuchel this week, last week as well, to try and get that deal done. Can you see that happening?
If a player really wants to leave and pushes for a move, then I can see it happening. I mean, the last thing you want is an unhappy player at a club, which is what nearly happened with Harry Kane last season, but somehow it got sorted. Then again, I just struggle to see, with all the players that Barcelona have been linked to, Christensen, Kessie, Alonso, they're now linked to, I think, Dybala or Lewandowski even, how they can afford to pay all these players wages and the fees. I know they may get a couple of them for free, but their wages are still going to be quite hefty. And I think that's probably the side of things that's getting sorted now, is how they can be aligned with all their match, maybe Alonso's wages that he's currently on at Chelsea, or find some kind of deal. But if he does stay, which I don't think is a possibility anymore, but if he does stay, I think we need to be really appreciative of how good he is as a left wing back. I'm sure Chilwell will be Tuchel's first choice next season, but I think we've taken some of his performances and just his ability to step in some games for granted at times. So I'd be really grateful for another season of having Alonso at left wing back or as cover as left wing back. But like I say, if a player's unhappy and wants to leave and go back to his homeland, then that needs to happen and be the priority for both parties.
One thing that worries me, and you brought it up, was Ben Chilwell. Now he's coming back from a massive injury, and not to say he'll have a similar injury this season, but I just don't know, is he going to hit that form, that level of form that we've seen last season? We just don't know, and I think it's a massive risk to allow Alonso to go, not really with any real replacement in terms of, and again, it goes back to, are we going to be playing the three centre-backs next season? Are we going to be having just, the back for the back, or are we going to go to, is Tuchel going to change that system? So if he does, I kind of understand that a little bit, because we might keep Kennedy, we might keep Emerson, we might have Ian Matson, who I think has been linked with another club already, but
Feyenoord, I think.
Yeah, that's it. So I just think what we don't want to do is end up what we've done last season, especially with right back, with Reece James, and then Aspie having to play every single game. Alonso did that pretty much the whole season as well. So that's what worries me. And I think you're right. You don't want to keep a player unhappy, but I think there's ways that we can keep him happy as well. So it's just that balance for me. But I'd hate to see him go, because I think I've said it before, he's an unsung hero. He's put shifts in when he hasn't really got the acknowledgement of it. He's just got on with it. He's done it. He's assisted goals that people just take for granted, like you said. But I personally, I don't want to see him go. I'll be honest. I want him to stay.
Yeah, definitely. It's so hard nowadays to find just a Premier League experienced player that can just come in, who can fit, because left wing back's not an easy position. It's someone needs to be quite naturally gifted in that position or have experience having played in that position. And I think all Chelsea fans still want to see him play as a number 9 in one game. Whether we've already wrapped up the league, we can just put him as a number 9. So that needs to happen if he does stay, or even a pre-season friendly or some kind of exhibition game. But yeah, like you said, if he can stay, then I'd be really, really happy. But it seems more like he just wants a return to Spain, to be closer to his home country, which seems to be the main problem. Because I don't think game time's an issue. He had plenty of game time last season. Maybe a couple fallouts with Tuchel that were rumoured at times, which may have played a part as well. But we never know what happens behind the doors. So only time will tell now.
Let's stick with defenders, because we've been linked with pretty much every defender I think possible. The key ones obviously is now the Jules Koundé seems to have gone very quiet, and what I read earlier in the week was that we want to try and we're bringing in attacking players. One of those players who's meant to depart is Timo Werner, who's meant to be part of the deal with Juventus to bring the lead to Chelsea. I think for 100 million, including the player, which I sort of had to read about 4 times, because I thought they said 100 million plus Timo Werner, but it's 100 million including Timo Werner in that deal. So Nathan Ake, another one, Skriniar, who you said earlier before we came on, Koulibaly, who I think his agent's in London or due to fly into London to sort of start negotiations. What's worrying me is it's a key area. You said it a few weeks ago when we did our last episode. We don't really have any sort of defined target. I thought it was Koundé. It doesn't seem to be. We just kind of seem to be going to different clubs and saying, who's available? Can we have them? What's the offer? And there doesn't really be any. There might be, but I just don't know. What's your thoughts on defence and those targets we're being linked with? And, there seems to be so many names, and, pre-season kicks off in a few weeks and we still don't really have any defined targets in defence.
Yeah, if it's a bit of a worry, like you said, and I think we need to kind of have those two, we play a back 4 or back 3, those 3 centre-backs or 2 centre-backs set in stone. Those will be our 3 starting centre-backs for those big Champions League games, those big Premier League games. As it stands now, we don't have that. We can't be going into those games with Sarr, Chalobah and Silva. I don't think that's going to work. Or Aspie or Reece James as a centre-back, which leaves right wing back as a bit of a problem. But no, I think it seems like every week we're linked to a new centre-back. Don't get me wrong, very good centre-backs, but it just almost seems like we need to just stay fixated on one of them and just go all out for them, whether that be delete which is a lot of money, if I'm honest, a lot of
Yeah,
money.
yeah,
But
including Werner as well. You think
including
about the,
Werner,
it's a lot of money.
yeah. But and then you mentioned those four names: Skriniar, Koundé, or five names with Ake, Delete, and
Koulibaly.
Koulibaly. We're going to need at least two of those five players potentially to really fill in the departures of Rudiger and Christensen. Levi Colwill seems to be another player that wants game time next season, and I'm sure Tuchel will give him kind of the Chalobah assessment like last season in terms of giving pre-season to really see if he's capable of fitting into the Chelsea system and play a part in the squad next year. But personally, I think I've said it before, I'd stick with Koulibaly and Delete. I think those would be my preferred two. I think even Koundé put quite a cryptic Instagram story of him on the plane, like with a sad face or something like that. Almost like, I think I might have seen that, almost like his move to Chelsea's fallen through now, or his move to Barcelona is not going to happen either. So yeah, I just kind of hope this kind of centre back situation gets sorted as soon as possible, because that's what I did say was an urgent priority in the last episode. And when I say urgent priority, you do want to kind of have those players in by maybe mid-July time, so you can give them pre-season. We have to remember the league starts a bit earlier this year. I think it's the 6th of August,
Yeah.
which is almost not even like a month and a bit to go. So yeah, we need to get it sorted as soon as possible.
I think you're right. I think, for me, it's more the system we're going to play, which would drive me into the direction of, is Delete the right answer? Because I'm pretty sure they only play the two centre-backs at Juventus. I don't know how comfortable he is in the back three with the three centre-backs. I just don't know. And that's what worries me about that deal. I think he's a really good defender. But to transition into a new league with a new system, I don't know. And we also, I think I said to you last night, I think, and I've said it before on different podcasts and to other people, I'm still talking about Thiago Silva that can play, week in, week out. And he just won't be able to do that next season. We saw the back end of last season that the odd knock, or he'd come off, or the FA Cup final. I think he sort of took the aspirin or whatever it was, the painkillers, just to get through the game. And I think this season we really have to manage his game time very well, especially if we try and get, beyond, further into the Champions League, or we try and close that gap between Liverpool and City in the Premier League as well. I just think we've got to wrap him in cotton wool, and we've got to try and just manage his time as well. But I agree with you. I don't think Malang Sarr, for me, he's not even in the conversation. I think Trevor Chalobah, I think, is someone who has definitely proven himself at that level. He can play there. I think Levi Colwill, I'm sure it was Southampton or West Ham are interested in trying to sign him. So you would think maybe another season's loan. I hope it's not a sale. I didn't really go into too much detail in the information I read yesterday. But if that's a fee, then I would hope there's a buyback clause in there, because he's definitely got the potential to come back.
Learn from our mistakes with Tomori as well.
Yeah, precisely. In hindsight, and this is just because it's just popped into my head, was selling Kurt Zouma the wrong thing to do at the time? Because I think if we don't bring in Delete, or we don't get Koulibaly, and we just end up with Nathan Ake, which I'm pretty sure Man City would love to offload. If we end up with just Nathan Ake and we're stuck with the centre-backs that we've got, surely Kurt Zouma would have been able to do a job in that defence.
I'm just thinking of all the problems we had last season, the sanctions, the Lukaku situation. Would we have wanted that Kurt Zouma cat video?
We did not need the cat video to
No, we did not need a cat video linked to a club. So in that kind of aspect of things, I'm glad we saw them. But I think before we can even consider Zouma, I think Tomori is the one we really missed out on. And then we just need to maybe learn from mistakes and really assess what we want to do with Ampadu and Colwill before moving them on, if we're going to move them on. And even there was that other chap, I think Lewis Hall, who played against Chesterfield.
Yeah, he's good.
He was good, and I think he played as a left wing back. That's another option potentially.
As well. He's versatile.
So definitely, I think Tuchel this year, we've got games in pre-season. I think unlike the previous years where we're still a bit, not as many as we would have wanted with COVID, but we've got games this season. Pre-season, I think Arsenal, I think a Mexican team, and a Chicago team, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Experiment things in those games, see what you want, do what you did with Chalobah last season in the Super Cup and those few pre-season games we had. But we just need to learn from those mistakes. Maybe Zouma as well. That could be classed as a mistake potentially.
I just think as well the 5 sub ruling, and I think I mentioned it before. I think that coming in for me says that we've got to have that depth. We've got to. I think we spoke about it on one of the YouTube videos around the congested fixture. I think it's around April and
So
August and is it April and October? October and April.
I think there's
I
like
feel like that is it. Yeah,
six Premier League games in both those months.
and
Yeah.
that's just the Premier League game. So that's not factoring in any sort of FA Cup, League Cup, Champions League or whatever. It's just the Premier League. And I think that's when I'm starting to think about Thiago Silva, wrapping him in cotton wool, etc., etc. So, for me, we've got to at least get 2 out of those 5. And I'm hoping it's not Nathan Ake, as much as I like him. I think for me, what I think I said last night, just the fact he's got the Premier League experience is what would make me think, okay, it might be a good deal. But I've watched him for Man City, and I watched him a lot for Bournemouth as well. And he's a good defender, but is he the level that we need? I would say no.
Yeah, I mean, I just spoke about Tomori. You spoke about Zuma. We kind of maybe class those as mistakes, but do we ever regret selling Ake? Probably not.
Did we get him for 40? We got 40 million or something for him? What was that?
I think we sold him to Bournemouth, and I think he was their record transfer. I can't remember how much they paid. But I think maybe City bought him from Bournemouth for 40 mil. I think.
That's it. Yeah.
But we never really regret selling Ake, so maybe we have to kind of think back to that, and there's a reason for it. So yeah, like I said, I think my top 2 in those 5 would be Koulibaly and Delete, because it looks like Skriniar's going to PSG from what I've read.
Interesting. Let's talk about some positives coming in. Let's end on a positive. So obviously last night my phone was going crazy. Lots of notifications were coming through, and I was thinking, what have I done? Looked at it, and it was Rafinha. Of all players, I just didn't see this one coming. And I mean, it's not a done deal, but I think from what Fabrizio Romano has sort of come out today and said that the 60 million is not the stumbling block. It's just personal terms that need to be agreed. Did you see this one coming? I mean, Arsenal looked like they're in pole position. I think Barcelona was sort of flirting, but again, financial constraints. But Arsenal were in the driver's seat, and we've come in. We've done a Willian. I think when he was meant to go to Tottenham, I think we've done a John Obi Mikel when he was supposed to go to Manchester United. We've done it again. And what's your thoughts on Rafinha? Because I'm dying to hear it.
Yeah, like you said, it's often when transfers do materialize, it's those that you least expect, or they're about to sign for another club, and then all of a sudden that tweet comes out that makes it almost official. And I feel like there is a bit of truth behind it. When Fabrizio tweets about it, there's always truth behind it. If I'm completely honest, I feel Leeds were hardly watched Leeds last season because they were so boring and they'd always concede plenty. But I saw that he had 11 goals, 3 assists last season. And in that Leeds side, that's pretty good. That's very good numbers, given how poor they were. And you just put him in a better side, and you do wonder what he could do. A Brazil international now as of 2021. So they will be seeing plenty of him at the World Cup, I'm sure, as well. Versatile, which is something we need. He's played a few times at right wing back, which may be why we're looking to bring him in. And you do kind of think Rafinha and Reece James on that right wing. That's scary, and it's scary for the opponents we're playing. So that would be exciting. The more I think about it, the more I'm happy with this player. But then I'm starting to think now as well, would we go for like a Richarlison and a Sterling on top of this move? Because I think we both agree that our priority should be defenders over attacking players. So I'm almost surprised we're getting this deal done before we sign the centre-back. But maybe it's more a question of urgency, seeing that he was so close to signing for Arsenal. And I feel like if you're a player like Rafinha, if you had to choose between Arsenal and Chelsea, and you want to play Champions League, so it makes sense for him. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Rafinha?
The same. I think, I didn't see it happening. I didn't like it come out the blue, which is, I love those deals when it just sort of happens and it's almost been done, under the table. But I think he's a good player. I've watched him on a handful of occasions for Leeds, and he's definitely someone. I mean, Leeds will struggle. I think if they lose Calvin Phillips, which I think they will to Man City, and we end up with Rafinha, there's 2 key players out of their squad for next season. So surprised that they're allowing 2 big names to go at the same time. But in terms of what we're gaining, I think brilliant. I think if we can, it looks like the Ousmane Dembele deal will be off if we do secure this deal. I think, the fact that Dembele still hasn't made a decision, his contract ends tomorrow. Barcelona haven't offered him a new deal. We've offered him something and he's almost kept us, on the shelf for another, he's got 24 hours to decide. It looks like maybe Todd Boehly and the club have thought, well, we haven't heard from Dembele. We don't want to be left without that sort of area to be fulfilled. So let's go in for Rafinha. We'll bypass and match Arsenal's. I think it was 55 million from Arsenal. We've gone in with 60 million. Champions League football. There's a World Cup in November. It makes pretty much good sense to me. And I think the fact you have Reece James on the right hand side, whoever we get, Chilwell and hopefully Sterling, which I think there'll be a double announcement for both of those players. Now I've heard Richarlison's meant to be almost, and it's almost done for Tottenham.
He's a very Tottenham player, isn't he?
Oh yeah, completely.
With his attitude,
completely. It takes me back to that night game when Chelsea did the battle at Stamford Bridge.
He'd have got a red card in that probably.
Yeah, 100%. But I think in terms of sort of who's plays out in the middle, you look at Kai Havertz. I think he's the main guy. Now there has been talk, and I didn't want to bring this up, but there has been talk about Neymar, who can play in that role. PSG apparently are willing to pay Neymar's wages for the duration of the season. Wherever he goes, they're going to pay his wages, which is something that, for me, I think he must be on 400, 500 grand a week, probably more. Now, if we can get Rafinha, Sterling on both sides, and someone like Neymar or even Kai Havertz, I'd be happy to see Kai Havertz. He's Lukaku wasn't playing well. Kai Havertz was filling that role and doing a really good job. He played there the season before when we won the Champions League in some aspects as well. That's a scary front three, even with Kai Havertz in it and Sterling and Rafinha, as a front three. I don't know what your thoughts are, because it obviously means Hakim Ziyech potentially to AC Milan. As I said before, Timo Werner as part of the delete deal. Would you be happy with that front three? If that was the ultimate front three we could get, the desirable one?
Yeah, I mean, I just always go back to summer 2020 when I said a scary front three would be Pulisic, Ziyech and Werner. And look how that turned out. So on paper, on paper exactly. On paper, Neymar, Sterling and Rafinha is very scary, but you do wonder what that means for players like Mount, players like Hudson-Odoi, like Havertz. Like you said, depth is so important for next season. But I just think Neymar's that player that would want all the attention on him. I think he may even disrupted the dressing room, as good as some of the Brazilians we've signed in the past have been for us, like Silva, maybe Oscar at times. You look at those like David Luiz, who kind of had his own little click in the dressing room and disrupted things with Conte. So I don't think he'd be the best signing for us. I'd just rather we focus on us and the vision we have for the future and build around that. But bringing in a player like Neymar, which seems to only be for a season if PSG are willing to pay his wages, I don't think that's the best. It almost seems like we'd be taking a step backwards in a way. I'd much rather just focus on playing Havertz as a false nine. It seems to have worked best at times. And if you look at our last couple of seasons when we've excelled, it's been playing a false nine. Champions League, sure, Giroud got us maybe to the quarters, but I think beyond the quarters, we were playing with Werner, Havertz and Mount as our front three. So yeah, but like I always say, I trust Tuchel now that I feel like he's got more of a say in the players he wants to bring in. I trust him to get the players that he wants and build that team and strategy and system around those players. Yeah,
no, I agree. And I think we forget, we got Broja as well, who's another player that I'm hoping we keep at the club. Is again someone who I feel has a role to play at the club next season as well. So even if it is Kai Havertz, like I said, I think one of the things I've always screamed about last season was the fact we didn't have players that could unlock defenses and make things happen in that final third and take players on and get the ball into the box. And Sterling is, I think I read a stat that Sterling's one of the most improved or better players under Pep Guardiola at his time at City. So I just think he's a player that, yes, he's declined in the last couple of years. That might be down to the fact he hasn't played as many games. We don't know. And I think one of the things that Thomas Tuchel has kind of given them a reassurance with is that he will be, a sort of main player for Chelsea if he does come to the club. So you'd think, does that improve him again? I think he's not 30. I think he's 28, I think, something like that, 28, 27. So he's still got plenty of time in him to prove himself at a top club. Rafinha, again, another one who can unlock defences as well. So
he's 25 as well, which is a perfect age, I feel.
Brilliant age. And even if we can, obviously Thiago Silva's there as well, the Brazilian link up. And I mean, even if we did get Neymar, I mean, the three Brazilians, you know, you'd hope Thiago Silva can keep both of them in check if we can get them. But
true.
but I know in sort of reality, I think, you know, if we can get Rafinha or Sterling, get those two defenders sorted out, that five that we spoke about. Obviously, the DM's a big thing still. I mean, it's still a big question mark over that. But I think if we can focus, I've always said, I think for me, I can't judge Todd Bowley on this season, this window. I just can't. We can't judge Chelsea how we do in the next couple of weeks. I think for me, next season's window is more crucial. This one for me is that sort of transitional period of getting a couple of players out, a couple of players that we kind of need in, allowing Tuchel to embed them, blend them into the squad that he's currently got as well. But I think next season for me, I mean, I don't know about you, but, you know, do you think we can win the Premier League this season? Or
like I said, I think the season coming up is all about closing that gap and getting closer to City and Liverpool. But given the kind of budget we've been given, the players we've been linked to, I think there's nothing says that we can't win the season in the next 2 to 3 years. I mean, City, as good as they are, they do have flaws. So do Liverpool. I think Liverpool losing Mane is a huge loss for them. Huge. And I think Salah is not going to stay another 2-3 years. So I think it's going to be an interesting next couple of seasons, I think. But I think what we see with Chelsea is we win the league sometimes when it's least expected. You look at that Conte season, no one expected us to win it. We finished 10th the year before. And I think given how last season went, it almost feels like we finished 10th at times because so much went against us. So I wouldn't be surprised if somehow we just pulled the rabbit out of the hat and did something special next year. I mean, that's what it is to be a Chelsea fan. We've got a trophy in us every season. We just don't know which one it is at times.
We deal well under pressure, which is good.
Definitely, yeah.
So I mean, I don't think we can win the league this season, but I do think we can definitely close that gap and bring in some players. But
very different expectations to last season. Then,
do you know? I think the Lukaku thing just sort of clouded everyone's judgment, didn't it? I think it kind of made everyone feel like, you know, we are going to win. That was the missing piece of the puzzle, which it clearly wasn't. But, you know, so long, be gone. Good way to end, I think. As always, make sure you follow the social accounts as well, which you'll see at the bottom of the screen. And if you're on the Spotify or Apple podcast, then please go and subscribe to the YouTube channel. As I said at the start of this episode, I think when I last checked, we had 205 subscribers, which, you know, I think 2 weeks ago we only had 150. So it kind of tells you the direction we're hoping to head in. So make sure you give us a subscribe and a like, and let us know your thoughts in the comments as well. Theo, as always, impressive shirt. I didn't say that on record, but I did say it before, but brilliant shirt. So if you're watching on the audio version, then go to the YouTube and you'll check out the shirt that Theo's got on. It's a classic shirt. You do not want to miss it. As always, thanks for joining me, Theo. This has been episode 64 from the Shed End podcast. Thanks for listening or watching wherever you are. Stay safe, and we'll be back very soon with another episode.